The Liberty Protection Safeguards, or LPS as they're called, they're designed to replace the current scheme of human rights safeguards that are known as the Deprivation of Liberty Safeguards. They're particularly relevant to those families who are supporting people with dementia, because often what can happen is that the risks can be so high of looking after someone at home that we may end up having to look for more restrictive care arrangements for them. And so, for example, the Liberty Protection Safeguards are a way of safeguarding the person's liberty if they do have to move into a care home, for example, where they may not be free to leave to go out by themselves, where there are carers that are basically providing 24-hour care, and their liberty is in law seen as deprived. Because if your liberty is deprived, then you're entitled to a whole load of extra safeguards to make sure that that detention is not arbitrary. And LPS is the scheme that aims to provide safeguards for the liberty of elderly people who are unable to protect themselves. The current scheme of safeguards we have, DOLS as they're known, essentially involve local authorities sending out assessors into hospitals and care homes to conduct a number of different assessments to see whether, for example, the person lacks capacity to decide to be there in the first place, whether they have a mental disorder such as dementia, and fundamentally whether it's in their best interest to be kept in that hospital or care home. And so the current scheme applies to adults in hospitals and care homes, where the local authority is responsible for the assessments, and if the assessments are all positive, then the local authority can then give the authority to the managers to deprive liberty. That's the current scheme. But we have a lot of people who are deprived of liberty in the community. So, for example, supported living accommodation, which is where you might share a house with other people with similar level of need, and carers are there to support the person with their sort of daily life. We also have deprivations of liberty occurring in other settings. So it's possible for someone to be deprived in their own home. If they have 24-hour paid carers supporting them at home, then that too could be a deprivation of their liberty. This is all because of a development back in 2014. There was a Supreme Court decision involving Cheshire West and Surrey County Council, where the Supreme Court looked at a fundamental legal distinction between restricting liberty and depriving, and they tried to draw a line as to when care amounted to confinement and thus depriving liberty. And the Supreme Court erred on the side of caution and essentially dropped the threshold quite low, which now means we have hundreds of thousands, quite literally hundreds of thousands of people deprived of their liberty in a whole array of different care settings, hospitals, care homes, and in the community. And at the moment, it's the Court of Protection that is there to authorise arrangements. That is the responsible body for authorising arrangements in the community, whilst local authorities deal with care homes and hospitals. So what LPS does is to change that entirely. And so one of the important differences between now and in the future is that we will have one scheme of safeguards for everyone. So there'll be hundreds of thousands of cases per year where people will require safeguards in a whole variety of different settings.